Ceasefire, two great things have happened. The Mets haven't won a baseball game, and the market has rallied every day. We're at all-time highs. Obviously, I kid about the Mets slightly, but the market is back on track, and what we're doing is we're shrugging off this news. Even this morning, when you hear that news over the weekend that this blockade may be coming to some sort of head, the market doesn't really sell off as much as you would expect it to. So we have flipped the script on this market. It happened when the ceasefire was announced, and we haven't looked back. So now we focus on earnings, and we focus on what's really mattering, hoping, and I know hope isn't the greatest plan in the world, but in this case, this is what the market is doing. It's shrugging off that news, assuming that we may get another taco, kick the ceasefire, which is Wednesday, down the road. As long as there's some sort of progress and no major escalation, I think the worst is behind us. And now when we get dips, we look to levels to buy, and that 7,000 level in the S&P 500 was the ceiling. We would get there, we would fail, get there, fail. We broke above. So as a technician, you look at polarity, and now that old ceiling could be the floor. So if we can fall 150 points, can't believe we got that high above it, maybe it's time to buy again.
Wow. I mean, as you see the sell-off happen, you're going to be buying again. You know, our last guest was talking about how expensive the market is, saying S&P's 21 times earnings versus Russell value, small cap value at, 13 times earnings, looking so much better. What kind of names would you pick? I know you have some picks for us. How did you come about the names that you did? Yeah. What makes them worthy of your money?
Well, first of all, as a technician, I don't really care about historical PE ratios, and that's not what goes into my decision-making process. When you look at a stock like Nvidia, which has got a PE ratio of 22, 23, historically that's cheap for Nvidia. That's a stock I like. What we saw last week was, as I said, the script has flipped, and now we're back to those Mag 7 names. Technology's leading. Financials kicked us off with earnings. 5 out of the 6 big banks beat. Sorry, Wells Fargo, you didn't join the party, but everyone rallied. Citi being the best of the bunch. I like Citi. I like to buy that strength. And now we have technologies in the semiconductor space, the memory chip space, and then you're getting a mean reversion in some of these software names. So what I look at are who's having earnings this week and where are their opportunities. One stock that sticks out to me, and I'm a little scared on this one, is ServiceNow. ServiceNow is 66% off its all-time high. This is one stock out of all the stocks that rallied. We had Palantir back above its 50-day moving average, Microsoft above its 50-day moving average, Meta got to the 200, kind of failed. These stocks that had been beaten down are finally getting a bid.
As traders lowered expectations for a diplomatic breakthrough between the United States and Iran, major tech stocks and indices saw declines on Monday. The change followed Tehran's announcement that it would forego more talks with Washington. At 49,062.07, Dow futures dropped by about 1%. Nasdaq 100 futures down around 0.7% to 26,494.99, while S&P 500 futures fell about 0.7% to 7,079.71. Although Nvidia and Meta were not specifically mentioned in the diplomatic development, technology-related contracts linked to both firms contributed to the 1.5% decline. Iran opposed to what it called exorbitant and unrealistic demands from the United States, according to Iranian state media. The lack of a second round of negotiations might maintain global unpredictability, which could have an impact on mood in all stocks, especially growth-oriented companies like Tesla, which are down roughly 1%. A portion of last week's gains were lost due to the retreat, and investors are probably reevaluating the likelihood of a quick settlement. If there aren't any new stories from the area, the market's response can stay modest. With gains of 6.9% over the previous week, 16.8% over the previous month, and 98.8% over the previous year, Nvidia shares most recently traded at $201.68. For partners and rivals who had been closely observing, the rejection of large-scale PC purchase ambitions eliminates a significant uncertainty regarding how Nvidia might change its place in the larger hardware chain. Nvidia's reach in cloud data centers and industrial edge AI is being monitored concurrently by Foxconn's AI-related demand signals and the increased QNX partnership. These updates show investors how important Nvidia is as a provider of safety-critical systems and training clusters in fields like robotics and medical technology. Knowing when to purchase, sell, or hold Nvidia can only be done in one method: For the most recent evaluation of Nvidia's fair value, visit Simply Wall Saints Corporate Report. Important points. The rejection of significant PC acquisitions maintains the focus on Nvidia as a provider of AI infrastructure rather than a wide-ranging PC OEM, which aligns with demand signals relating to Foxconn and QNX. Given the QNX Alliance and Foxconn statement, observe how AI-related sales and margins change in the data center and industrial edge areas. Since a significant portion of earnings are non-cash items, keep an eye on cash flow and any additional insider selling when analyzing valuation and momentum. In the last 6 months, shares of Nvidia, the company that invented artificial intelligence, AI chips, have plateaued. The stock price of the semiconductor giant has dropped by almost 4% from the 52-week high it hit in late October, which is very unexpected, considering that the company continues to grow at an incredible rate every quarter. In October, Nvidia became the first $5 trillion corporation in history. Its market capitalization has since dropped to $4.8 trillion due to its lackluster stock market performance. However, it won't be shocking if Nvidia's stock rises sharply in the upcoming year. Wall Street experts appear to agree on that. In fact, in the upcoming year, Nvidia's market capitalization may surpass $6 trillion. The median price forecast for Nvidia suggests a pleasant increase over the next 12 months. Nvidia has a 12-month median price objective of $267.50 among the 70 analysts that cover the stock. That is 33% more than the closing price on Friday. Nvidia's market capitalization might rise to $6.5 trillion if it achieves its median price objective over the course of the upcoming year. Furthermore, 93% of the analysts that cover Nvidia's stock give it a buy rating. Thus, Wall Street appears optimistic about Nvidia's chances for the upcoming year. That's hardly shocking because, given the company's remarkable growth, the stock's recent decline wasn't warranted. In fact, it is evident from Nvidia's value that it hasn't received adequate compensation for its expansion. Its future price-to-earnings ratio of 24 is marginally higher than the S&P 500 index's ahead earnings multiple of 21. However, Nvidia's projected 74% earnings growth this year is far higher than the average 17% earnings growth anticipated from S&P 500 businesses. Its fiscal 2028 profit growth prediction of 34% is likewise twice that of the index. Because of the high demand for its AI data center chips, Nvidia should be valued at a premium. The stock may be even more valuable than Wall Street anticipates. Nvidia's fiscal year 2026, which concluded on January 25th, brought in $216 billion. Of that amount, $193.7 billion came from the data center industry. The business now projects that sales of its Blackwell and Vera Rubin data center lines would generate an incredible $1 trillion in revenue in 2026 and 2027. That suggests that Nvidia's top line will increase significantly. The $1 trillion pipeline actually surpasses the amount of money analysts predict Nvidia will make over the next 2 years. Therefore, it won't be shocking if Nvidia's growth surpasses Wall Street's projections. In its fiscal year 2028, which will encompass most of the year 2027, the corporation is expected to generate $11.12 in earnings per share. Its stock price may reach $333 if it trades at 30 times earnings at that point, a justifiable premium over the average multiple of the S&P 500. Nvidia's market capitalization would rise to slightly over $8 trillion, a 67% increase from current levels. Investors should think about purchasing this AI stock because it may soon break out of its rut and increase in value significantly. The introduction and widespread use of the internet more than 30 years ago altered the course of history. By removing the information barriers that had stood between Wall Street and Main Street for more than a century, it gave companies new methods to market and sell to consumers and helped spark the retail investor revolution. Artificial intelligence, AI, is the next big technology that investors have been waiting for a long time. Thanks to Nvidia's hardware, there is a multi-trillion-dollar addressable market to enable software and systems to make autonomous split-second decisions. Although AI-accelerated data centers are dominated by Nvidia's graphics processing units, GPUs, History indicates that the company's stock may soon face a day of reckoning. Following the closing bell on May 20th, the AI revolution will reveal its 2027 fiscal first quarter operating statistics. It should be another fantastic quarter, according to the company's and CEO Jensen Huang's prediction. Nvidia guided for $78 billion in first quarter sales, plus or minus 2%, and a generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, gross margin of 74.9% when company released its fiscal fourth quarter earnings in late February. This suggests a substantial gain in GAAP gross margin and a 77% increase in sales over the same quarter last year. Nvidia's GPUs have clear competitive advantages on a computing basis, despite increased foreign competition. Because of its infrastructure's capabilities and the ongoing shortage of GPUs, Nvidia has been able to charge more for its hardware than any of its direct competitors. Additionally, Huang has stated that by the end of 2027, the combined lifetime revenues of his company's Blackwell and Vera Rubin architectures are expected to reach $1 trillion. In enterprise data centers, Nvidia's GPUs are without a doubt the best option due to the increasing need for AI technology. The response of the company's stock after earnings announcements indicates that investors' expectations for Nvidia, and possibly AI in general, are too high, despite the fact that Nvidia has a history of beating Wall Street analysts' consensus quarterly revenue and profit estimates. The day following the release of Nvidia's quarterly operating results, the following is the performance of its shares. Q4 2026, 5.5%, Q3 2026, 3.2%, Q2 2026, 0.8%, Q1 2026, 3.2%, Q4 2025, 8.5%, Q3 2025, 0.5%, Q2 2025, 6.4%. Nvidia's shares have dropped from their previous day's close after 5 of the last 7 quarterly results announcements, even though it's not unusual for them to soar in after hours on the day of the release. After revealing its operating results, Nvidia typically loses 3% of its value. Every game-changing technology since the internet's inception has survived an early innings bubble-bursting catastrophe for more than 30 years. Investors overestimate the uptake and/or optimization of technologies, which leads to the formation of these bubbles. Businesses aren't really near to maximizing their AI solutions or making a profit on their AI investments, even if Nvidia's operating results unequivocally demonstrate that there isn't a problem with the adoption of AI infrastructure. History alone suggests that May 21st might be a disastrous day for Nvidia and its investors. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.
Well, we are seeing crude oil up a little bit. Now, it's off the highs here today, but we did see over the weekend, 3 potential ships being targeted by the ROTC, and then also the United States basically capturing one of their cargo ships and potentially firing upon that ship as well, which is creating a little bit of this tension and maybe giving the market a little bit of volatility here. Now, obviously, 30 minutes before the market opened, we obviously got some good news that maybe these talks are going to take place in Pakistan. We do have the U.S. delegation leaving either today or tomorrow, and there's hopes that we could have some talks by Wednesday. But the situation is definitely very fluid, especially when you're looking at the logistics and the shipping routes. On Friday, we saw a lot of enthusiasm in the market. There was an announcement by both the foreign minister of Iran as well as the United States that the Strait of Hormuz is open. Sam, I was watching those tankers pretty much in real time. They were all looking like they wanted to transit the strait, and then they all turned around for the most part, and it has been for the most really kind of closed over the weekend here. But hopefully we get some positivity, and that's going to continue to create this market to move to the upside here. But I still am a little bit skeptical that a resolution is going to take place, and that crude oil could still move aggressively higher here. And given the backdrop that we have in the physical markets, we need a resolution in the next 2 weeks, or we are going to see some pretty monumental impacts to some of the Western countries, especially if you're looking at Australia, which only has around 10 to 13 days left of diesel supply on hand. They only also have 2 refiners, and one of them is partially damaged because of a fire. And then you're also looking at the EU that could run out of jet fuel here in the next 2 weeks, which we could see some flight cancellations because of that. Not even including what's happening in the South, Asia Pacific markets at this point, which obviously have, for the most part, COVID-19 type of level of shutdowns in order to preserve their energy reserves. So when you're looking at the chart, obviously we saw a breakdown of this channel, but if you're looking at boots on the ground, or if you're looking at the actual physical markets right now, prices are still relatively elevated, and the shortage still continues here. I think that's still conducive for oil as well as other energy products to still move higher.
Yeah, and I mean, look, remarkable resilience out in Asia overnight, given, of course, the situation out there, and the first to react, no doubt, to those higher oil prices. I mean, we did see mostly green across the board there, just fractional gains, but obviously we'll take it, given, of course, just how exposed they are. We've seen some of the rationing going on in some of those economies, as you mentioned. Look, yeah, we hope to get some sort of confirmation on what's going to go on with these talks over in Pakistan, hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours, because, of course, we only have 2 days left of this ceasefire, which is looking pretty fragile at this point, with, of course, the US firing and seizing that Iranian flagship as well. And I suppose that just brings us back to the markets, KG. I mean, it just feels like they're so conditioned. I know that Yardeni has been talking about the fact that maybe the markets are just learning to live with this at the moment, particularly when you've seen, and I know Jay Woods was just talking to Nicole about this, that disconnect between what we've seen in oil and stocks to some degree, because, of course, we have seen them doing that dance. And I was interested in actually how the shift in tone from sort of pre-war coming into 2026 has changed from the global investors' interest and appetite, $28 billion into US equities since the eve of the ceasefire announcement, which is fascinating. I mean, obviously, that's what's taken us to these record highs. What are you looking at as far as the levels?
Well, Sam, here's the thing. What's different this time around when it comes to an oil shock compared to what we have seen in the past? In the past, the Fed has actually raised rates because of the inflationary pressures of these oil shocks. Right now, the market's not pricing that in, which is why we are still seeing equity prices moving to the upside. And if we do hear the Fed, which I believe we're going to have a meeting here over the next couple of weeks, if we hear the Fed maybe shifting their tone and maybe putting the possibility of rate hikes on the table, then you can have a scenario which is similar to what we saw back in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where we start seeing the equity market starting to break down. And even if you go back in other examples, in 2007, 2008, in some respects, we had an oil shock there. You look back in the 80s, or even some of the events in the 90s, when we see some of the economic headwinds taking place, and we also have the Fed raising rates on top of that, on top of a supply shock, that's where we see equity markets moving to the downside. Right now, we're not pricing that in. Credit spreads have come in really aggressively, actually getting close to the yearly lows right now. Liquidity has been able to be a backstop. And then the earnings picture looks a lot better than what we have even predicted. I think for the companies that have already reported, 85% of them have beat both top bottom line. And at this same point in time, on average, over the last 5 years, it's only around 75, 76%. So there's still a lot of optimism here. But I think the rate hike narrative is really going to be the fulcrum for this market. The geopolitical risk, we will be able to digest it over time. We have seen that in the past. We expect that to be the same in the future. But I think it's all about the Fed at this point. If they say that they're going to pause and they're still open to rate cuts, the market's going to probably move higher. And if not, and we see a reversal in that tone, that's where you see some headwinds. And that's what's different this time around, which is probably why Mr. Yardeni is still optimistic on this market. It's not just because we can live with the geopolitical risk. It's because we're not also going to see liquidity being dragged out of the market by the Fed as well.